What's happening, guys? This is RRPG here, and I'm here to present another 2 cents video on the 2 cents block for you all. Taking a look at the title of this video, some of you might be thinking that I have no idea what I'm about to talk about, or thinking I might be just flat out crazy. In actuality, I'm actually not until you hear what I have to say. Before this 2 cents subject came about, I was working on another 2 cents video where I wanted to discuss about the digital event at E3 2015 with how it was underwhelming and disappointing at best, but not in the sense with many people brashly believing that this year is the sign of the big end giving up on the Wii U. Basically, it was a video response to Rule of Two Review, who came up with a pretty genius analysis with Nintendo after E3 2015 with how they could be rectifying the situation and how there still may actually be a lot more than what we currently know about. Shout out goes to that guy, by the way, and I recommend you watch the video and his content as they are really good. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. I was in the midst of working on a response video toward Rule of Two Review with where I agree with his stance, right? Well, that topic came to pass with my beliefs starting to shatter even further when Reggie Fils-Aime came out to do so much damage control on the criticisms and heavy discontent from the Nintendo fanbase and gamers alike. Especially when it came to him saying that Iwata did not apologize for the negative response that people were giving, and saying that E3 is more about the near-term proposition and not a long-term one that its competitors do. First off, this is what Reggie said about Iwata not apologizing. It was not an apology. It was not a statement about the content we're showing. Essentially, it was an I hear you message. Mr. Iwata is in Japan, and what he's trying to do is help explain to consumers in Japan what's going on at E3. The correct translation of his message was, "Thank you for your feedback. We hear you, and we are committed to continuing to meet your expectations," was essentially his message. Now, let us delve into Reggie's comment about the absence of The Legend of Zelda for Wii U at E3 2015. It goes back to the statement I made earlier about how we view E3. We just fundamentally don't believe in showing content at E3 that is going to be a long-term proposition. We like to show content that typically will launch in the upcoming holiday and maybe extending it to the first half of the following year. And at this point, the new Zelda for Wii U is not a 2015 project. Then IGN asks if not showing the game would send a message to Wii U owners and potential Wii U buyers if Zelda is not a 2016 game. And here's what Reggie had to say. No, I don't believe that it sends that message. In fact, in separate interviews, Shigeru Miyamoto has reinformed that it's a 2016 game. And I also believe he's reinforced that it's a Wii U game, because I know there is that thinking floating around. Our mentality is more near-term when we think about E3, and yes, we take it on a case-by-case basis. There's also a recognition that we didn't want to frustrate the consumer. We could have scored a lot of points and showed some little tidbit of Zelda Wii U, but in our collective opinion, the belief was, in the end, that would cause more frustration than benefit. Finally, I want to add one more tidbit about what he had to say about Metroid Prime Federation Force's negative reception when compared to Splatoon. One of the things I find interesting is that if you look at E3 historically for Nintendo, typically what happens is a press briefing happens, or a digital event happens, and then over the course of the next couple of days, people see the games they get to play, and the appreciation and understanding of what we're doing increases over those 3 days, and continues to build into the holidays. Splatoon is a game that people are loving right now, but if you rewind to E3 last year, Splatoon was being viewed as, yes, it's innovative and it's different, but the controls are a little hard, and I don't understand the mechanic of turning into a squid and going through the ink. There were all of these complaints. But now you look at the finished product, and the satisfaction is huge. For us, our goal is to make sure we announce the content, help people understand the content, but most importantly, get hands-on with the games. I haven't heard the feedback for this year's Best Buy demonstrations, but I think the feedback is going to be quite positive because what we do is make great games, and they show well, and they really lead to consumer excitement. Reggie, I know you have a reputation to deliver PR to try and ease the fears of people who have criticisms if they are slight or extremely negative, but I can't help but notice that there were so many contradictions from what you say about Nintendo being more about the here and the now when you had big reveals that were about 2 years ahead of a game or a product's launch. Not to mention, you have so many people who are very pissed with you and the company with how you presented yourself at the event when you had a few things that stood out, while most others were games that people felt shafted towards or ones that they already knew about within past Nintendo Directs and the stuff within the Nintendo World Championships. Even those who felt your digital event being a disgrace left that notion in their minds that this upcoming holiday season is the last big hurrah for the Wii U, as you were acknowledging it as a failed console. You know, it's stuff like this that makes me wonder how you became the marketing manager for Pizza Hut before you became the president and chief operating officer for Nintendo of America in the first place. When you showed your face for the first time at E3 2004 with introducing yourself as the guy who's all about kicking ass and taking names, I started to believe that when the next 5 years started to come about, as you helped manage to make the Nintendo DS and the Wii become really big successes in the industry. With the Wii U and 3DS, I'm starting to lose faith in you because you have started to do nothing but become more infamous in recent years by not doing so much to match the same success as your previous hardware. Why is it that you are not taking more initiative to try and bring in more appeal to your console from a Western standpoint, instead of just going by what the shareholders believe? If Dan Adelman was still at Nintendo and was the president and COO of NOA, he would have taken many great strides to make sure that the Wii U and 3DS would have a wider range of appeal from a global standpoint. I know that you don't have enough manpower to have more freedom with trying to make the Wii U and 3DS more appealing, but this is getting ridiculous. Again, I have no disrespect with the traditions with how Nintendo Company Limited does things because Japanese and Kyoto-based traditions are not very easy to try and change. But how much longer is that mentality in a video game company going to last? I know Nintendo is profiting, which is great, but the last 3 years with the constant losses in the yearly fiscal results should have been a wake-up call from all branches of the company from around the world. Before I get deeper and deeper into this category, let us retread everything in order before I unleash my final thoughts. First off, you said that Iwata did not apologize to those who felt that the digital event was a complete disgrace and an underwhelming show. First off, I really don't see how you can think that was truly the case. If you look at Iwata's background, he actually worked as a game designer since Balloon Fight on the NES up until he became president in 2002. Reggie, the last place you worked at before becoming Nintendo of America's president and COO was the head marketing manager for Pizza Hut, where you brought about the creation of the Bigfoot Pizza and the Big New Yorker Pizza. Your background in gaming is nowhere present in your resume. How it is that Nintendo hired you as president and COO for the North American branch is beyond me. When Iwata went to Twitter to say that he and the company were listening based on what Japan was saying, that should have been in no way fully related to that side of the industry, as he should have been listening to everyone else. Saying that Iwata and Nintendo are not apologizing because of how atrocious and underwhelming the event was is nothing but damage control, and those constant acts is why many people are getting fed up with your PR bullshit, including investors and stockholders. Speaking of which, your E3 presentation was so bad that your rating in the stock market took about a 3% dive because you showed more of what we already knew about and less on new content. Every E3 is about bringing about new content that is coming not only within this year and early next year, but beyond that as well. And what Sony and Microsoft did for this year showed that for everyone. What you did this year was not very smart, as you have to take inspiration and tips from your competitors because you have no choice but to compete. You made it seem like that last year with your 2014 digital event, as you showed your teeth and got into your competitors' faces with the content that was coming for last year, this year, and what would possibly come beyond that with the Zelda Wii U reveal. Just admit that you did not meet everyone's expectations, as E3 is supposed to be covering all demographics, and you went back to the family-friendly image that you disregarded last year. What you should have done was focus on the more important things with bringing about some newer information on Devil's Third and Fatal Frame 5, as we know those games are coming out this year, and very soon I might add. Leaving those games out of your E3 website and timeline demographic chart was retarded. Even if you couldn't show more of Zelda Wii U, then show at least a 10-second cutscene of something within the story, like Link going face-to-face with a primary antagonist. If you did something like that, it would have had more people raising eyebrows and bring about much talk and speculation with what was all shown. That is why the company showed Twilight Princess from E3 2004 to E3 2006. So there is no way that Zelda Wii U should have been left out. There is no way that those two core games that I mentioned shouldn't have been mentioned in the digital event. Many of these things we already knew about should have been saved for a Nintendo Direct, as the only thing that was worth talking about was Star Fox Zero. That's it! You should have realized that a quote like what you said about what was correctly translated from Iwata was only going to come back and really haunt you, Mr. Fils-Aime. Next up, I wanted to discuss you and Nintendo not showing Zelda U because of you bringing about near-term proposition for every E3. Again, that should not always be the case, as E3 is about both near-term and long-term proposition. As I stated, Twilight Princess was showed off at 3 E3 events before it was officially released. Skyward Sword was shown off at 2 before it was officially released. The Wii was shown off 3 times before it was released. Xenoblade Chronicles X was shown off 3 times before it releases this December. Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Wii U was shown off 2 times before it released last year. Same thing for Bayonetta 2, Yoshi's Woolly World, and many others that I can't name off the top of my head. You see the pattern of what you are doing? Saying that you only focus on near-term proposition when you make the excuse in thinking that Zelda U was a 2015 game is completely contradictory to what the other games on Wii U and 3DS you have shown off about 2 or 3 times before they release. There is no way that talking about the game multiple times at every E3 will create frustration at the consumer, because they are looking forward to it tremendously. The Legend of Zelda is one of your biggest moneymakers for the company, and every installment is going to have the fan base and consumers crave for more details, whether you like it or not. Look at Sony with the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Shenmue 3. Both games are coming to the PlayStation 4, and the respective fan bases for both games are going to have people awaiting for more information about them, long before they are even released. Leaving out Kingdom Hearts 3 at last year's E3 as well as Final Fantasy 15 for 2 years straight from E3 was a big mistake. But that is another can of worms that really isn't related to this topic. Reggie, what I'm saying is that you have to have both near-term and long-term proposition, so that way Nintendo can gauge interest for potential new customers and longtime followers of your products. If we heard more information about Zelda U and more information about new Nintendo 3DS games and Wii U titles that have officially begun development, would have made everyone have a better opinion of what you presented at E3 this year and every year. You have so many people who are beginning to believe that you have raised the white flag with the Wii U and moved Zelda U over to the NX because they feel that you and Nintendo no longer have faith in your current hardware. Personally, I still believe that you still have plenty of life left for the Wii U with games that we don't even know about as of right now, but not showing them off and what you have cooking for your current hardware leaves so many of us suspicious. 2015 cannot be the last big hurrah for the Wii U. You made great strides with doing better to sell your home console in 2014 than the previous year, but even though the console is at less than 10 million, should not force you to raise the white flag. That is what Sega did when they officially gave up on their hardware before going the route of the dinosaur with making games on different platforms. I still have faith in the Wii U, and I still think it is a great console, but I and many people don't want you to easily give up on it just because you haven't met the same number of sales that your competitors are making. What you did this year have left so many people skeptical. You should have said something like, "Hey, don't worry. Just because what was shown does not mean we have given up on the Wii U just yet. We still have the best that is yet to come," which you would have not expected from us. That way, you could have at least alleviate people's concerns and skepticisms that they have with your future. It's not that hard. Finally, I want to talk about what you said in your statement with the initial reception of Metroid Prime Federation Force is very similar to the initial reception of Splatoon. This is where I 100% disagree with you, Mr. Fils-Aime. From what I recall last year, everyone got extremely excited when they heard of your new IP hitting the masses, and they rushed over to your booth just to try it out. What everyone talked about, they may have said that the controls felt a little awkward, but the gameplay and concept were fun and a breath of fresh air. The reason why people were discontent about Metroid Prime Federation Force is because it is a game that comes from a long-existing IP. It looked like a Nintendo 64 or Nintendo DS game that looked like it wasn't even finished because of the visuals, and it was not the continuation after Metroid Fusion that fans have been wanting for nearly 15 years. I think even Kensuke Tanabe said that the only 2 types of games in the Metroid franchise are those from the main series canon that Yoshio Sakamoto works on, and the Prime series he helped Retro Studios create. The last time I heard from Sakamoto, he has no plans on returning to the Metroid franchise anytime soon. If that is the case, would it be wise to have him as a creative consultant and supervisor for newer games in the series, and have a developer like Team Ninja, Platinum Games, or even Valhalla Game Studios work on newer installments if the guy is no longer committed in directing future entries in the franchise he helped create with the late Gunpei Yokoi? Metroid is like the Triforce of Power within your list of franchises along with Mario and Zelda, Nintendo. Your constant holding off on making any newer games and turning down potential pitches for newer entries from game developers is getting tiring and very disrespectful, as that is one of the only mature franchises that still has a place for the core side of your fan base. That is why the reaction to Next Level Games' newest project on the 3DS was met with heavy criticism, because it's a game that doesn't look or feel like a Metroid game. The only reason why you put Metroid in the title is because you want to ensure sales in the commercial status quo. But Metroid Prime Federation Force is not going to bode well for the general public if that is the final design for the game you are going for. However, I find that what the general public and hardcore Nintendo fans are doing with releasing the petition to stop you from ever releasing the game is far worse than the announcement of it. If you guys don't want that game, then all you have to do is vote for your wallet and not purchase it when it comes out next year. Personally, I am still going to give it a shot, because I know that there could be more than meets the eye for that game. We may never know. Unfortunately, Reggie Fils-Aime, your argument about Metroid Prime Federation Force's initial reception being very similar to that of Splatoon holds no merit when you look at everything from what I talked about. That is not possible. Everyone who tried out Splatoon at E3 2014 were really excited and enjoyed it for what it was, and that carried over to when the game released last month. Metroid Prime Federation Force, on the other hand, does not, because it is from an existing franchise that doesn't look like a Metroid game at all. After covering my counterpoints toward your comments made at E3 2015, and from what you said within your years working for Nintendo, I think your current status and approval rating amongst the general public who are actually constructive have painted a picture of how you are currently doing at Nintendo, Reggie. I am getting sick and tired of you giving off excuses that speak like automated machines when you can't properly address a situation, like what you did at E3 2015, and your image for the Wii U and 3DS is not working at all. You have not done jack with building stronger relationships with third parties in the Western market, as you don't seem to know what you are doing. You appear on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon when you talk about your games in that dull and boring monologue, because you aren't trying to present your games from a gamer's perspective, as you were talking about them from a business perspective. How is it that you made the marketing team go from being one of the best in the industry to the laughingstock of where they are at for the North American market right now? If you are a marketing man for Nintendo, you would pull out all the stops to make sure that the marketing for Nintendo in the US would remain strong as of today. Talking to people like Jimmy Fallon on talk shows, appear on game shows with answering questions where your responses are very interesting to say the most, and speaking for the games from a business standpoint is not what you should be doing, as your background and being a businessman with no experience in game design is written all over you. I know I may get so much flack for delivering all my points, but if someone from Nintendo has to leave, then Reggie Fils-Aime is the one who desperately needs to get the boot. I have seen this trend with Sony and Microsoft, where both Shuhei Yoshida and Phil Spencer used to work with games before becoming the head of the gaming division of both companies, where they deliver games and content from the perspective of a gamer and game designer. If you look at Satoru Iwata, he's along that group since he originally worked on games for HAL Laboratories, so that is why he does very well for the Nintendo Directs when he speaks directly to gamers under the mindset of a gamer. You, on the other hand, Mr. Fils-Aime, have stuck yourself in the same shtick with how you have been since you resorted back to delivering news on Nintendo games from a business perspective and not a gamer, and so many people, including myself, are getting sick and extremely tired of it. After the Wii and DS rode off into the sunset with their 100 million and 150 million units sold respectively, the way you have presented the Wii U and 3DS, mostly the Wii U, have not seen the same level of success that you managed to capitalize from the last decade. I'm afraid that with the coming of the Nintendo NX, that it will suffer the same fate as the Wii U, as your leadership for this modern and high-definition era of gaming is not working. Someone like Bill Trinen, who has worked with Nintendo a lot longer than you have, should be the newest president and COO of Nintendo of America, because his long experience working with the company and knowing what it is like from the inside out can paint a better and brighter future for Nintendo, from not only in Japan, but mostly the Western market. I'm sorry, Reggie, but it is high time that you pass the torch to someone like Bill Trinen or someone from the Nintendo Treehouse who works on games for the Big N. Because if you remain as president and COO for NOA for the NX's lifecycle, then I'm afraid that things are only going to look more bleak as more people will begin to turn their back on Nintendo as a whole. If any higher up within Nintendo that has done a better job is Satoru Iwata, but Reggie needs to move on and let someone else succeed him, because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who can fit for the company much longer. Nintendo, if you are listening, which I know you don't and probably won't anyway, then I am saying as a gamer and constructive critic that you deserve someone better who can help your company from a Western viewpoint, instead of just a Japanese one. I'm not trying to discourage you, nor am I criticizing the company as a whole, but I'm just delivering this bit of advice if you want to do better in the West, since you have struggled so hard to maintain good relationships with Western publishers and developers. Currently, your stance of having no support from both markets and losing trust from investors may be a current thing that is really hurting you at this moment in time. I don't think that has to be a recurring thing in the long run. I will still support you as I grow older and play your games on your systems, both old and new, but I know you deserve better than how most people within the general public view you. Godspeed, Nintendo. Godspeed. Alright guys, that is all with my 2 cents on this whole subject, as I needed to get it all off my chest. Please don't take this as me having this distasteful hatred toward Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, or especially Reggie Fils-Aime. That is not true by any means. I think Nintendo is a great company. I think Satoru Iwata is a great president and CEO, and I especially think that Reggie Fils-Aime is a great person. I'm just saying that when it comes to how Reggie presents himself within the business, currently, the place where he works at when looking at his background in business is not for him. If anything, I know for a fact that Bill Trinen is the one that should succeed him if Nintendo wants to do better in the long term. As I stated from the disclaimer of the video, if you disagree or have criticisms toward my 2 cents video on this, please be constructive, rational, and open-minded with your opinions, because I am not bashing at Nintendo, nor am I hating on Reggie Fils-Aime, as I'm looking at what needs to work for both Nintendo and Nintendo of America in the now and in the long run. Without further ado, I want to hear your 2 cents on this topic. Do you think Reggie Fils-Aime is a great president and COO for Nintendo of America? Do you think he's not? What are your thoughts on the guy, even while still working with the company for 11 years straight? Or what do you think needs to work for Nintendo to succeed? Make sure to rate this video as well as leaving your positive and negative feedback down in the comments. Also be sure to hit that subscribe button underneath that video, as more support from you guys will mean that more content is coming from me in the future that you won't find anywhere else. Until next time, this is RRPG signing off by saying Godspeed and game on, gamers. Have a good one.
You